And now for another in our Christmas Cook series this year, Stephanie Alexander, she of the Cook's Companion. 500,000 copies of this book has been sold so far to Australians around the country. There's a revised version. She's added a couple of chapters. And Stephanie Alexander joins us now from our Melbourne studios. And now, Stephanie, it sounds like a fairly major renovation to the Cook's Companion this time. What's changed in the basics of cooking that you needed to add a whole new chapters?
Actually, a lot of things have changed in the Australian world of food in the 20 years since I wrote that book. I mean, it has had one update 10 years ago and it was due for another one.
What are the key changes as you've seen it?
Well, regulations have changed. We can, for instance, now import prosciutto and Spanish jamon, whereas in the existing book it says that they're prohibited imports. We now have a much greater interest in bush foods. We have a much greater interest in cooking with grains and seeds. So I felt that those chapters needed to be written. And then within the existing chapter on things like lamb, I wanted to talk about saltbush lamb. I wanted to talk about wagyu. Just seemed to me that a lot of things that food-interested people were using and knowing about or needing to know more about were not there.
In terms of the bush food, I mean, I guess in my mind I'd thought, oh, that's something restaurateurs are getting into or people who are, quite pedantic about foods. But in fact, I have a good friend who's gone out and picked the warrigal greens in a garden and cooked me up a pie. And now I see warrigal greens everywhere I go in Sydney just about.
And warrigal greens, they really grow like a weed, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was at the Pyrmont Growers Market a couple of weeks ago and I was delighted to see that they are now selling bush foods in very small packets. And that's what was worrying me for a long time. If you were a restaurateur, you could get 5 kilos of saltbush. But if you were Mrs. Jones, you didn't need 5 kilos of saltbush. You just wanted a little bit to give it a go, and now you can do that. And that's a great advance.
Stephanie, it's a much-loved book. Do you get much feedback from all these people who've taken your cookbook into their homes?
I do. I get almost every day when I'm out somewhere in the tram or walking down the street in the supermarket, somebody comes up to me and very shyly usually says, "We want you to know that this is our Bible." And I smile and say, "Thank you very much." And I mean, what else can you say? I mean, I am incredibly humbled and pleased and, of course, delighted that it's held in such high esteem. And it has given me the freedom to work with the Kitchen Garden Foundation. So it's been a bit of a win-win, hopefully, for everybody.
In the introduction to the book this time, you write now that you are saddened by the anxiety Australians have around food. Tell me more about that. Is it anxiety about what we eat or how we cook?
There's no question that there's a small percentage of our population that really love to eat well, love to cook well, search out interesting product, support the magazines, the food shows, all that sort of stuff. But the vast majority of people seem to me to be held back often by anxiety about not knowing how to approach something they've not seen before. And I've had people over and over again say things like, well, I've eaten eggplant in a restaurant and I've really enjoyed it, but I look at it in the greengrocers and I think, I'm not quite sure what to do with that thing. I mean, it looks very beautiful, but do I peel it? Do I slice it? Do I chop it? That was really the starting point of the Cook's Companion. I thought I'll just write this simple little paperback about ingredients, but it sort of grew.
You've done more than teach us how to cook. You've also been teaching the younger generation, particularly of Australians, about food, how it grows, where it comes from, giving them another dimension to their understanding of food. It's in hundreds of schools across the country now, the Kitchen Garden program, and it's also going to be part of the Australian National Gallery in Canberra.
Habits start early in life, and I think that young kids at primary school age are extremely curious, very open to new experiences, and really enjoy getting their hands dirty. They enjoy cooking and chopping, and they'll always eat anything that they've cooked themselves. I mean, it's an incredibly important thing. You have parents saying to me, my child doesn't eat anything green. And I say to them, well, look at your child tucking into a third slice of a spinach and potato tort, that he or she has made. And, of course, my hope is that those habits will last.
What's your favourite Christmas recipe? Can you share that with us?
A good trifle.
Oh, yes.
I don't always use the same sort of cake. In fact, I think this year I'm going to use an orange-type cake that's a bit more solid than sort of sponge fingers or a sponge. And then I'll probably squash some raspberries over that, and then slice some peaches and make a beautiful custard and fold that over, pour that over. And then I probably will make, as I've said in both the book and the app, a syllabub instead of whipped cream on the top, which just gives it a little zing because it's got a little bit of lemon zest in it.
That sounds delicious. And you mentioned the app, so the Cook's Companion is not just a book anymore.
No, I decided I had to move into this new world, and I could see how the young generation were looking for recipes online, and sometimes the recipes online don't have a lot of credibility behind them. Sometimes they're wonderful, but I thought, well, those people who love the Cook's Companion and who just want to know what they might be cooking for the weekend, or they might want to go on holiday for a week, they don't particularly want to take the 4 kilos with them, they can have the entire Cook's Companion on their iPad or their phone or both, and there it is with them all the time.
Sounds good to me. There's no stopping you now, Stephanie. Thank you very much for joining us again on Breakfast.
It's my pleasure, Fran. Happy Christmas.